Have you ever reached for your keys and noticed that your grip just doesn't feel as strong as it used to? Maybe the metal edge feels slick, or your fingers seem a touch clumsier, nudging the fob slightly off course. It's a small thing, one you might dismiss as just aging. But sometimes these little clues can tell a bigger story about what's going on inside your body, especially after 60. Today, I want to talk about one symptom in particular that could be an early sign of Parkinson's disease, and why noticing it now can make a world of difference in getting the right care as soon as possible. We'll explore what to look for, why it happens, and what your next steps might be. Then we'll dive into 2 more signs to watch so you can feel confident and informed about your health journey. Let's start with that sense of touch, or rather how it sometimes slips away. You might notice your fingers feel a little less sensitive when handling small objects. Buttons on your shirt, the ridges of a comb, even coins in your pocket. In Parkinson's, one of the earliest changes can be a subtle loss of the fine motor control that relies on tiny muscles and nerve signals. These nerve pathways are powered by dopamine, and in the earliest stages of Parkinson's, as certain brain cells begin to falter, that dopamine flow can slow. The result is a slight dullness in touch and a dip in precision, which you may notice first in your fingertips. Imagine knitting a simple row of stitches. One day it flows effortlessly, and the next your needle seems to slip through the yarn. Or think about turning the pages of a book. You might find yourself hesitating to pinch a single sheet, or the corner might bend instead of lifting cleanly. These moments can feel frustrating. Why is this happening, you might wonder. But they can also be an important signal to pay closer attention to your body's messages. If you begin to notice this change, the first step is simply to take note of it. You don't have to alarm yourself, but you can become your own best advocate by tracking when it occurs and how it feels. Keep a simple log, maybe 5 or 6 rows of your knitting project, 5 or 6 pages turned in your book, and mark any spots where your finger strength or sensitivity felt off. This gentle awareness can help you see patterns over days or weeks, and it gives your doctor concrete details if you decide to seek an evaluation. Now, let's talk about a second early sign that often accompanies these fingertip changes. A soft, barely noticeable tremor in your hand or fingers at rest. You might find yourself holding a cup of coffee and seeing the surface ripple ever so slightly. Or you may notice your hand shaking just a bit when it's in your lap, especially when you're relaxed and your muscles aren't engaged. In classic Parkinson's, this resting tremor often starts on one side in one hand, and it can feel like a gentle flutter rather than a frantic shake. One day, you're holding your mug as usual, and you catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of your eye. You might think your heart skipped at first. Is someone behind me? Before you realize it's your own hand, quivering like a leaf. It might fade when you reach for something or when your hand is busy, but if it persists at rest, that's a clue worth recognizing. Many seniors assume tremors are an inevitable sign of getting older, but in Parkinson's, that writhe at rest has a specific rhythm and character. It's usually slower, about 4 or 5 tremors per second, and it's most noticeable when your muscles are completely relaxed. If you do begin to notice this resting tremor, try to observe it in different settings. When you're reading the newspaper, watching television, or simply resting in a chair, note which hand it shows up in, whether it intensifies with fatigue or stress, and whether it diminishes when you move or focus on a task. Again, these observations aren't meant to frighten you, they're your body's way of speaking up. By paying gentle attention and jotting down what you see, you'll gather valuable information that can guide a conversation with your physician or neurologist. At this point, you might be wondering, does noticing these signs mean I definitely have Parkinson's? And the answer is no. Many conditions can mimic early Parkinson's symptoms, from essential tremor to arthritis or nerve compression. But the power lies in early detection when Parkinson's is diagnosed sooner. You and your healthcare team can explore treatments that ease symptoms, support mobility, and preserve quality of life for as long as possible. That might include medications that boost dopamine activity, physical therapy to maintain strength and balance, or simple adaptations at home, like switching to larger, easier-to-grip utensils in the kitchen. So if you've spotted a slight decrease in fingertip sensitivity or that gentle resting tremor, don't brush it off. Instead, give yourself credit for noticing and consider sharing these observations with your doctor. Mention the everyday moments, a knitting row, a coffee cup, a book page, that brought the changes to light. Your detailed notes can help them distinguish between normal age-related changes and early signs that deserve closer attention. As we move into the next part, we'll explore 2 more subtle symptoms: changes in your voice and shifts in your posture that often accompany these first signs. Together, these clues form a fuller picture of your nervous system's health, giving you the knowledge to act early and confidently. So take a gentle breath, remind yourself that informed awareness is empowering, and let's continue this journey to better understanding what your body is telling you. You've already tuned in to those tiny changes in your fingertips and that gentle resting tremor, both early whispers from your nervous system that it's time to pay attention. Now let's keep listening as we explore two more subtle signs that, when they appear together with what we've already discussed, can point toward early Parkinson's. You might notice these shifts in everyday tasks, how you walk, how you speak. So let's talk about what to look for and how to observe it in your own life. Have you ever found yourself reaching for something on a shelf, only to feel like your arm and hand are moving through molasses? That hesitation before you lift a cup to your lips, or the way your steps sometimes feel unusually deliberate. These are hints of bradykinesia, the medical term for slowed movement. It isn't simply feeling stiff or tired after a long day. It's as if your brain's go signal is muffled, and your limbs respond more slowly than they ought to. Imagine standing in your kitchen, reaching for the cereal box each morning. On some days, that motion is smooth, practiced. But if you start to notice that your arm pauses halfway, as if needing a moment to remember the next step, that's bradykinesia at work. You might also catch a change in your gait. Maybe your stride becomes shorter, or you begin to shuffle, almost as if your feet are glued to the floor. You may unconsciously take more cautious, measured steps, perhaps hesitating at the top of a small rise or marching in place for an extra second before descending a step. One friend of mine, Joe, told me he first noticed this when volunteering at his local library. He used to push his cart smoothly between shelves, but one afternoon he realized he was inching forward in tiny increments, almost as if he were tiptoeing through his task. At first he dismissed it as fatigue, but over weeks he saw the pattern repeat, and once he mentioned it to his doctor, those halting movements became an important clue in his evaluation. If you observe this in yourself, you don't need to panic, you need to note it. Pay attention to how long simple actions take. Brushing your teeth, buttoning a shirt, walking a short hallway. If those tasks feel slower than they used to, or if you find yourself pausing mid-motion, jot down when it happens and under what circumstances. Does it worsen when you're tired? Or does it feel the same in the morning after a good night's sleep? This kind of detail helps healthcare providers distinguish the normal slowing of age from the more pronounced bradykinesia of Parkinson's. As you become aware of slowed movement, you may also pick up on another early sign that often travels alongside it: changes in your voice. Have you, or a loved one around you, noticed that your speech sounds softer, lower, or a bit hoarse? Maybe people ask you to repeat yourself more often, or you find yourself unconsciously leaning in to hear your own words. In Parkinson's, the muscles that control your vocal cords can lose some of their strength and coordination, leading to a softer, monotone voice that lacks the usual inflections and volume. Picture yourself calling out a simple greeting to a family member in the next room. On a good day, your voice carries easily, rising and falling with expression. But if you notice you must clear your throat first, or that your hello comes out quieter and flatter, that could be a sign that those small throat muscles are not responding as nimbly as before. Another everyday moment. You're on the phone with a friend, and after a minute you realize you've been speaking more softly than usual, leaning forward to be heard. That's not shyness or distraction, it could reflect early changes in your vocal control. My neighbor Alice experienced this when she joined a weekly bridge group. After a while, her partners mentioned they were straining to catch her bids. She thought perhaps her hearing was off, but an audiology check was fine. When she compared recordings of herself talking over the years, she realized her voice had indeed grown softer and less varied in tone. Mentioning this to her physician added another piece to the puzzle of her early diagnosis. Recognizing these changes, slower, more deliberate movement, and a softer, monotone voice, doesn't mean you have Parkinson's for certain. It means you're paying attention to real clues your body is giving you. By noting when and how these shifts occur, you give your doctor valuable information that can speed up a proper assessment. Early intervention, whether through physical therapy, speech exercises, or medication, can help you maintain function longer and preserve the quality of your daily life. Now that we've uncovered bradykinesia and vocal changes as two more early signs to watch for, you're better equipped to notice the full spectrum of clues your body offers. In our next segment, we'll explore a fifth sign, changes in your sense of smell, and then bring everything together, sharing tips on how to approach conversations with your doctor and plan next steps. So as you go about your day, keep these observations in mind, and remember, you're not alone, and taking action early can make all the difference. You've already tuned in to the gentle tremor in your hand, the fingertip sensitivity that once served you so well, the slight slowing of your movements, and the way your voice can soften when Parkinson's begins to whisper in the background. As unsettling as these signs may feel, noticing them early gives you the power to seek help, start interventions, and preserve your quality of life. Now let's explore one more early clue, one that might surprise you because it happens in your nose rather than your nerves. A fading sense of smell, known medically as hyposmia, can tip you off to Parkinson's long before more obvious motor symptoms take center stage. Imagine waking up one morning and brewing your usual cup of coffee, only to realize that the rich aroma isn't greeting you as it used to. You lean in closer, hoping for that comforting swirl of warmth and roasted bean, but the scent is faint, or gone entirely. Later, as you pass by the bakery, you expect the sweet promise of fresh bread to reach your nose, yet it feels muted, like someone has turned down the volume on your olfactory senses. This isn't just a one-off, it's a steady dimming of smells you once recognized without thought. Your sense of smell is connected to brain regions that begin changing in Parkinson's well before the part of the brain that controls movement shows obvious damage. In fact, research suggests that up to 90% of people who go on to develop Parkinson's notice some decline in smell years before any tremor or stiffness appears. That early olfactory loss doesn't mean you'll definitely develop Parkinson's. It can occur for many reasons, from sinus issues to upper respiratory infections. But when it joins the other signs we've discussed, it becomes an important piece of the puzzle. So how can you tune in to your own sense of smell? It's simpler than you might think. Choose a handful of familiar scents: coffee, vanilla extract, a sprig of rosemary or mint, a slice of citrus fruit. Keep them in small jars or containers in a drawer or shelf. Once a week, take a minute to inhale each scent one after the other, closing your eyes and noting how strongly you detect each aroma. Write down your impressions. Did the coffee smell as bold as last month? Was the citrus zing missing a little of its punch? These regular check-ins become a record of how your sense of smell is changing over time. If you find that familiar scents are steadily fading, coffee that once jolted you awake is now a whisper, mint that used to refresh you feels stale, or cinnamon that once reminded you of holiday baking is barely there, mention it to your doctor. They can help determine whether simple causes like nasal congestion or medication side effects might be at play, or whether further testing for early Parkinson's makes sense. Because when you bring these observations to your healthcare provider, you're giving them real personal data that can guide early diagnosis and treatment plans. Let's consider a scenario. Your friend Robert, who taught music for decades, noticed that he couldn't smell his wife's rose-scented hand cream anymore. He assumed it was just a change of age, until he remembered the little tremor in his right hand while tuning his guitar one evening. When he shared both the tremor and the smell loss with his neurologist, they worked together to explore possible Parkinson's, and he began symptom-supporting exercises months earlier than he might have otherwise. That head start allowed him to keep playing at community events with little interruption for a long time. As you pay attention to your own aromas, you may also find comfort in simple remedies that reconnect you with the world of scent. If your sinuses feel stuffy, a gentle rinse with saline solution can clear pathways and give you a better chance to detect scents accurately. Warming a cup of water with a slice of ginger or a few drops of essential oil in a steam inhalation, taking care to keep your face at a safe distance, can also refresh your olfactory nerves. While these practices won't reverse nerve changes in the brain, they can help you maintain a richer sensory life and give you clearer data on whether true smell loss is occurring. Now that we've explored how a fading sense of smell can serve as an early warning sign, you've got 5 key clues: fingertip sensitivity, resting tremor, slowed movement, softer voice, and hyposmia, that together spell out a pattern worth investigating. Paying attention to these subtle shifts doesn't mean you've been sentenced to a difficult diagnosis. It means you care enough about your future to notice the quiet ways your body speaks to you. In our final segment, we'll bring all these signs together, offering gentle guidance on how to share your observations with your doctor, explore next steps like movement therapy or speech exercises, and find hope in treatment options and community support. You'll learn simple strategies for staying active, engaged, and supported, even as you navigate the early days of a Parkinson's journey. So take a deep breath, whether or not your nose caught that lavender sprig just now, and remember that by tuning in and acting early, you're giving yourself the best chance to keep living well at any age. Have you ever reached into your pocket for your reading glasses or the TV remote and felt your fingers tremble just enough to make you hesitate? Maybe you've noticed the little spoon in your morning cereal shaking ever so slightly. or you've felt your grip loosen on the handle of a door. These moments can seem small, even amusing, but sometimes they're our body's way of whispering, hey, something's changed. If you're over 60, it's natural to chalk these things up to getting older. But when those small tremors begin to arrive uninvited and at rest, when your hand quivers even as you sit quietly, that's one of the earliest signs of Parkinson's disease. When you spot it early, you have the chance to connect with your doctor sooner, start therapies that support your mobility, and hold on to your quality of life for as long as possible. In this video, we're going to talk through 5 subtle symptoms that can emerge as early Parkinson's, signs that appear before the stiffness and slowed movements you might already associate with the disease. We'll begin today by examining that resting tremor and a shift in fingertip sensitivity, 2 of the most common first hints. You'll learn what to look for in your own daily routines, how to observe and record these changes without alarm, and why acting on what you notice could make a significant difference in your journey. So let's get started. Imagine you're enjoying a quiet morning with a cup of tea and the newspaper. You lift that cup and the surface of the liquid ripples gently, as if a leaf brushed across it. You might think the table is shaky or chalk it up to a momentary imbalance, but if the tremor shows up when your muscles are at rest and eases once your hand begins to move, this is a classic early Parkinson's sign. In medical terms, we call it a resting tremor, and it tends to be slow, about 4 or 5 shakes per second, and most noticeable when the affected hand is relaxed, like when it's resting in your lap or lying on a table. One morning, my neighbor Richard noticed exactly this. He was tuning his radio, adjusting the tiny dial with his index finger, when he realized the knob wiggled under his touch. Curious and a little concerned, he paid closer attention over the next few days. Each time he reached for anything small, a teaspoon, his reading glasses, the TV remote, he saw that same gentle tremor. That moment of awareness led him to jot down what happened and when, and to share his notes with his doctor. Because he recognized the tremor early, he was able to explore treatment options to manage it long before the shakes became more pronounced. If you want to observe this tremor in your own life, try this simple check. At a quiet moment, rest your hands in your lap or on a flat surface and watch for any shaking. Then engage your fingers, pick up a pen, turn a page, or lightly tap your fingertips together. And you'll likely notice the tremor eases as your muscles switch from rest to action. Noticing this pattern, tremor at rest, easing with movement, can give your doctor a clear clue in evaluating whether this is Parkinson's or another condition that sometimes mimics it. Now let's shift to our second sign, changes in fingertip sensitivity and dexterity. You've used your fingertips every day for decades to button shirts, thread needles, pick up coins, or type on a keyboard. In early Parkinson's, as dopamine-producing cells in the brain begin to falter, the neural signals that coordinate those fine motor movements can slow or become less precise. Suddenly, you might find that small buttons feel less crisp under your finger, that threading a needle takes longer, or that coins slip through your grasp more often. Think about putting on a favorite sweater with tiny buttons. One day, the button slides right through the hole, and the next, you fumble, struggling to pinch that little fabric loop. That hesitation isn't simply age or tired eyes. It can signal that your brain's wiring for fine touch and coordination is subtly shifting. To track this, pick a simple daily task. A page of a book, a row of buttons, a small puzzle piece, and note any pauses or slips in your usual speed or precision. Over time, these small observations add up to a clear picture of how your dexterity is evolving. My friend Linda, a retired librarian, first noticed this when she shelved books. She'd always aligned titles in neat rows with a single finger crease. But one afternoon she realized she had to press more firmly to slide a book into place, and the edges felt blurrier under her fingertip. Putting it down to mild arthritis, she waited to see if it improved, but it persisted. When she mentioned the change during her annual checkup, her doctor suggested doing a little structured dexterity test and referring her to a neurologist. Because she caught it early, Linda was able to begin hand exercises and a low-dose medication plan that helped preserve her fine motor skills. By paying close attention to these 2 early signs, a resting tremor and shifting fingertip sensitivity, you're not diagnosing yourself, but rather gathering insights that empower your medical team. You're acting on your body's signals instead of letting them slip by unnoticed. And in Parkinson's, where early intervention can slow symptom progression and support independence, that awareness can be a true gift. Now that we've explored the first 2 clues, how your hands might tremble at rest and your fingertips may feel less precise, take a moment to notice how these signs appear in your own life. You don't need to feel alarmed, but do give yourself credit for tuning in to the subtle ways your body speaks. In our next part, we'll move on to 2 more early signs, a softening of your voice and a slight slowing of your steps, and learn how to observe them in the rhythms of your daily routine. Each insight brings you closer to timely care and the chance to keep your life moving on your own terms.